All right, let's head way, way up north. I'm talking about a remote island halfway between Norway and the North Pole. We're going to a fortress, one that's literally carved into a frozen mountain. This place, it's one of humanity's biggest, boldest hopes for the future. It's a story all about science, incredible global trust, and really, our collective survival.
But before we crack open the doors, I want to ask you something. Just think about it for a second. With everything that's been passed down to us through the generations, what do you think is our single most valuable inheritance?
Your mind probably jumps to things like gold, right? Or priceless art, maybe the crown jewels. But the inheritance I'm talking about, it's way more fundamental. It's something most of us handle, literally every single day. And we probably don't even think twice about it.
What is it? It's the absolutely incredible story of our food. It's the diversity of all the crops our ancestors figured out how to grow over thousands and thousands of years. It's basically a living library of genetic information that tells a 13,000-year-old story of us, of human civilization. That is the inheritance we're talking about. And here's the kicker. It's in serious danger.
So, why exactly does this amazing inheritance need to be protected? Well, you can think of it as the ultimate insurance policy for all of our food. Now, you've probably heard this place called the Doomsday Vault, right? The media loves that name, but honestly, that's not really what it's about. The people who built it, they see it completely differently. The best analogy is to think of it as the world's ultimate backup hard drive. It's not sitting there waiting for some zombie apocalypse. Nope, it's an active insurance policy against the threats we're dealing with right now. Things like climate change, war, or even just, bad management.
And the need for this backup is, well, it's really urgent. Get this, according to the UN, in the 20th century alone, we lost a staggering 75% of our crop genetic diversity. 75%. As we all switched over to these modern, super high-yield crops, thousands of those unique local varieties just vanished.
This idea that this diversity is precious, it's not new. There's this incredible, heartbreaking story from World War II during the siege of Leningrad. Scientists at a major seed bank there, they were literally starving, but they made the ultimate choice. They chose to die of hunger rather than eat the sacks of rice and potatoes and seeds they were protecting. Why? Because they understood. They knew those seeds were the key to the future, to rebuilding everything after the war.
So, how in the world do you build a fortress safe enough to protect that future? Well, it turns out you need a perfect mix of three things: rocks, ice, and trust. Okay, so why Svalbard? The genius of this spot really comes down to this. First, geology. It's drilled 130 meters deep into solid sandstone, and it's high above sea level, so even in a worst-case scenario where all the ice on Earth melts, it's safe. Second, climate. The natural permafrost there is basically a giant natural freezer that works for free. And third, and this is so important, is politics. The whole area is a demilitarized zone managed by Norway, a country pretty much everyone sees as neutral. This is a place where seeds from countries that are literally at odds with each other can sit on the same shelf in peace.
So inside the vault, they have these massive coolers that bring the temperature way down to a constant minus 18 degrees Celsius. That's the global gold standard for keeping seeds safe long-term. At that temperature, all the biological processes inside the seed just slow way down. It's kind of like suspended animation. It means some of these seeds can stay viable for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years.
Okay, but think about it. How do you get countries to send you their national treasures, their agricultural heritage? Well, you do it with something called the black box principle. It's brilliant. It works exactly like a safe deposit box at a bank. Norway owns the vault, the building itself. But whoever deposits the seeds, they own what's inside. They have the only key. Norway can't touch it, can't open it. And that simple idea, that's what builds the trust that makes this whole global project even possible.
And the journey for each and every seed is just incredibly precise. First, it's carefully dried to just the right moisture level. Then it's sealed in these special 4-layer foil packets. Then it's boxed up, given a barcode, and shipped to the top of the world. As soon as it arrives, it gets scanned and then carried deep inside the mountain to its new home on a shelf. A tiny piece of its country's history, now backed up and safe.
For a long time, the vault was just that, an idea, a symbol of hope, a promise for the future. But then, tragically, that promise had to be cashed in.
The test came from the war in Syria. There's a really important gene bank called I-Carta, and their main facility was near Aleppo. As the civil war got worse and worse, they had the foresight to send duplicates of their collection to Svalbard. Smart move, because by 2015, they couldn't get to their own seed bank anymore.
So they made the very first withdrawal from Svalbard. They took those seeds, planted them in new facilities in Morocco and Lebanon, and guess what? By 2019, they were harvesting new seeds and sending them right back to the vault. They completed the circle. It actually worked.
I mean, that story with Icarta proved it all. The whole system worked exactly as it was designed. This place isn't some dusty museum where seeds are just forgotten. No way. It's a living, working, breathing part of our global food system. It's humanity's backup drive, and it is officially online and working.
But the next big threat, the biggest challenge the fortress would face, wasn't going to come from a war zone. It was going to come from the very thing it was built to help us survive: climate change.
And the irony here is just wow. The entire design was based on one big assumption, that the permafrost, the permanently frozen ground, would stay, well, permanent. But then in 2017, after some record-breaking heat and really heavy rain, meltwater started leaking right into the entrance tunnel.
Okay, let's be super clear here. The water froze solid long before it could get anywhere near the actual seeds. The collection was never, ever in danger. But it was a massive wake-up call. It showed that this impregnable fortress actually had a weakness. It was designed for a climate that, well, that we don't live in anymore.
So what happened? The Norwegian government acted fast. They poured a ton of money into a huge upgrade. They built a brand new, totally waterproof concrete tunnel. They moved all the equipment that generates heat out of the mountain into a separate building. They even dug new drainage channels and installed an artificial cooling system to make sure the permafrost around the entrance stays frozen no matter what. They basically climate-proofed the fortress.
So, while the vault was getting physically stronger, something else was happening. Its mission was getting deeper. It started becoming about way more than just crop science.
This is really amazing. In 2020, something historic happened. The Cherokee Nation became the first U.S. tribal nation to deposit seeds. They sent their sacred seeds, including the white eagle corn and a bean called the Trail of Tears bean, a bean their ancestors physically carried with them on that brutal forced march in the 1830s. And that just shows you what this place has evolved into. It's not just about finding genes for drought resistance anymore. For people like the Cherokee Nation, these seeds, they are their history. They are their culture. They're a living link to their ancestors. The vault isn't just protecting biodiversity, it's protecting identity. Look, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault is without a doubt one of the most incredible, most hopeful things we've ever done as a species. It's this amazing safety net that makes sure that 13,000-year-old library of human ingenuity doesn't just get erased. But it leaves all of us with a really big question, right? We've got the backup covered, but what are you going to do about the original? The living, breathing diversity that's still out there, right now, in fields and farms all over the world.